The great evil has arisen, and its name is functional training. It seems like a pretty popular thing nowadays, but there's so much confusion, and I'll try to explain what it's all about in this video. So let's just start with the term functional training. How did it appear? First of all, this term was used in rehab exercising for people who are injured or having some disorders. So this stands for exercising that allow people to do some daily life movements. So imagine you're an old geezer and you can't even bend over to pick something from the floor, so you want to do this functional training. But on the other hand, we got CrossFit. Around 10-15 years ago, CrossFit popped up, and it seems like almost everybody were doing CrossFit. So there were lots of newbies involved, and this type of scenario is a common thing. With lots of newbies, they started to think that they do something very special. They think that they are special, you know what I'm saying? So back in the days, like 10-15 years ago, CrossFitters were shitting all over the place. They were mocking bodybuilders, powerlifters, and they thought that they train like better than the other athletes, which doesn't make any sense. And nowadays, I think CrossFitters don't think so, and nowadays there are not so many people involved in CrossFit, right? And there's a thing that's called something like functional endurance training. Those CrossFitters who thought that they were special started to think that they were training functional, like more functional than the other athletes. So this is the time where the second definition of this term, functional training, appeared. And it became really popular like a couple of years ago, and you probably have seen all these stupid videos and reels when people doing some crazy shit. And all these people, they claim that they train more functional than the others. So I'm gonna explain why it doesn't make any sense. First of all, when we're talking about functional training, if you noticed, nobody considered, for some reason, being strong as being functional. But it is a function, right? For some reason, people consider functional training as a training targeting mobility, flexibility, endurance, and yada yada yada. And if it's strength training, it's gotta be something like very twisted that, takes lots of balance and stuff. But it's just some crap. Athletes from different sports train strength. And I'll tell you this, even ultramarathon runners train strength. And if we're talking about functional in terms of daily life activities, like if you are not restricted with your movements, like you can pick things from the floor, you can sit up, like etc., it means that you are pretty functional. In terms of sport activity, functional is something that is beneficial, like bench press, for instance. There are lots of people who saying stuff like bench press, squats, etc., are absolutely not functional movements, which doesn't make any sense because, let's just take bench press, right? For, let's just say, javelin throwers and shot putters. Is it functional? It is, absolutely. But is it functional for skeet shooter or a chess player? Like, not really, right? So functional level of different exercises may vary depending on sport, but you gotta remember that strength is pretty much universal. So if you train like a powerlifter, it's gonna be functional for all the sports when being strong is a requirement. And if you are an amateur athlete, you have to do what you like to do, avoid injuries, and maintain progress. That's what you actually want to do, so this is gonna be functional. And if you're talking about all these people who do this pseudo functional training, let's just think about it. Like, why is it functional? Like, who would benefit from it? So what is this shit is all about? Amateurs who don't compete train some specific exercises that can be beneficial, but they act like this is the most, like the best freaking way to train for some reason, but there are actually no reasons. I want to train my body like a weapon. Like, do you? Man, you just have to train wrestling or boxing. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, is it really more efficient way to make your body a weapon training this shit instead of doing actual martial arts? And there are lots of people claiming that they are more athletic, etc., but they don't compete. So what's the point of it? Like, go to a freaking competition, prove that you are more athletic on a field, on a pitch, in a boxing ring, but they won't do this. You know why? Because it takes something. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's like tactical guys who are like, you know, thinking that they are like special operators and, you know, like have PTSD from a war that they never participated in. And they think that they are like, deadly. When in reality, man, you want to be like a special operator, just join the military. Or it looks like people who promote some bullshit, you know, they claim that there's the deadliest martial arts ever, but they never proved it. And all those excuses like, I actually can't participate in like in a boxing match because it's too deadly, some kind of crap like this. So we all know what it's all about, right? So it's the same stuff like that. Like, you know, business coaches, like, I'm gonna, you know, help you to make millions. Like, if you knew how to make millions, you probably would make millions instead of, you know, selling your courses for a couple of $100. It doesn't make sense. So I think there is nothing else to say. This concept is just some sort of fraud. Some people doing it for the sake of being popular, some sort of like clickbait strategy, right? Because if you see some person on the Instagram doing some twisted, weird, crazy exercises, you'll go nuts. You can comment, oh my god, so stupid, and it increases his popularity. And there are some people who think there are magic pills and they will buy this shit. So actually this is how it works. But are there any positive sides? Yeah, there are some. For instance, some of the exercises are pretty cool and pretty beneficial, and you can use them. And there's nothing wrong with the exercises by itself. I mean, half of the exercises is just pure like bullshit, right? Just wasting time, just some freaking joke or something. But some exercises are pretty beneficial. But I'll tell you this, they are not something new, and people were doing this shit like years and years ago. So it's just worshipping. And that does make sense, but exercises pretty much make sense. You know what, I've seen a guy who was doing depth jumps on one leg with the 100 kilo bar, so that was pretty impressive, and I'm not gonna deny that. Yeah, that's cool. Another thing to consider, I think that people finally started to realize that there are no dangerous movements and like dangerous exercises. I'm not talking about like some over-exaggerated stuff, right? There are no dangerous movements. There are just the movements that you are not used to. I think this concept that we had before all this pencil neckery started to appear, and people started to care about perfect form, perfect technique, neutral back, and you know, like your back made of glass, so you can't round it by any means. It's so freaking stupid. And finally, lots of people realizing that this is kind of weird, and our body is way more resilient than you might think. And it's not a functional training merit, of course. It's just how the trends have changed over the last years. And I think it's, you know, pretty positive change. So guys, in conclusion, things like functional and non-functional don't exist by themselves. There are exercises that could be both functional and non-functional simultaneously. So functional is bonded with the sport that you do. And that's it. So all these people who do functional training and think that they are special can just get the fuck out of here, okay? Just get the fuck out of here, guys. So, stay freaking functional, and I'll see you in the next video.